Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service on this 5th day of July, 2021. I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got fire danger. Quite an area of high to extreme fire danger there from the southern slopes of the Eastern Brooks Range down across the Yukon Flats, Porcupine River, Upper Yukon, with some extreme fire danger over toward the Eagle area and also central Upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, mostly north of the Alaska Range, due to some gusty wind conditions there, gusting as high as 35 miles an hour or so at Delta Junction, and some of that higher fire danger down in the eastern Copper River Basin, and a little bit of extreme fire danger there along the Copper River Valley there, due to winds gusting up to about 30 miles an hour along the Copper River today, or 15 to 30 miles an hour in gusts. And next up, hazardous weather graphic. No watches, warnings, or advisories out around the state for the next couple of days or longer. We do have a lot of moisture coming in to the west and southwest interior today, heaviest along the Bristol Bay coastline with let's see. Well, Bethel picked up 0.4 of an inch of precipitation. Aniak and Russian Mission, as well as Portman and Caltag, all had about 0.4 of an inch, just under half an inch. 12-hour period there. 24-hour amounts may have been in the soaking rain category of about half an inch there. So pretty wet out in the western areas, but heavier even around Togiak, had 2/3 of an inch of precipitation today. And then northeast Bristol Bay picking about 1/10 of an inch. That moisture sliding on up, as you can see, band of moisture bringing rain into the Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula area. Light amounts of rain, just a few hundredths of an inch, as that spreads into the Susitna Valley as well. Increasing clouds, Copper River Basin. Gusty winds ahead of that as well, with, as I mentioned, up to about 35 miles an hour along the Copper River Valley, there in Copper River Basin, and on the eastern passes of the Alaska Range, gusts as high as 35 miles an hour, and the usually windier areas there. Out to the west, a system brought the front, actually peak wind gusts ahead of the front, 50 miles an hour at Cold Bay earlier today. That's come down. Dutch Harbor had 45 mile an hour peak wind gusts, with King Salmon had winds close to 40 miles an hour. Also windy across southwest interior, 15 to 25, some gusts of 30 miles an hour. Lots of clouds over the northern Bering Sea down to about the Pribilofs, and other weak area clouds and some moisture there just west and northwest of Adak. But the Panhandle seeing mostly sunny skies today, with temperatures rising up into the lower 80s, 70s and lower 80s over the southern southeast coast. Stewart saying 81 for a high, or at least a mid-afternoon temperature, with 70s over the southern part of the Panhandle. Cooler up to the north with more clouds. Eastern interior temperatures in the mid-70s to mid-80s. 70-degree temperatures recorded as far west as Bettles and Portman, with 84 at Chicken, about the warm spot in the state today, and mid to upper 70s in the Fairbanks area. And today you can see the front there pushing into the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay, with the 1,003 millibar low just south of St. Lawrence Island. And again, ahead of that front, another band of moisture, initial band moving the rain into south central Alaska, Susitna Valley, light rain. But from there west, wet conditions all the way out into the eastern Bering Sea, and sunnier with isolated thunderstorms, a couple of strikes up around Paxson, just north of Gulken and the Copper River Basin, and a couple more strikes up over the Eastern Brooks Range with some thunderstorm activity there. Otherwise dry, warm over the Panhandle. Some isolated showers popping up along the eastern border, especially the central and southern eastern border. And for the forecast for tonight, we're looking at periods of rain, or rain periods of, for the North Gulf Coast, South Central Alaska, Anchorage area, Kenai Peninsula, up into the Susitna, Madawaska Valley, increasing precipitation over the Copper River Basin, and winds gradually coming down. Breezy and wet for the southwest part of the state, actually from the Kuskokwim Valley all the way out to the Yukon Kuskokwim Delta coastline, Norton Sound, Seward Peninsula, periods of rain, and also along the southern slopes of the Brooks Range. A little more showery there for the White Mountains. And it looks like it'll stay dry over the Yukon Flats through tonight, but even the North Slope Arctic coast, look for some showers, as well as some areas of light rain, fog, and drizzle. That condition along the coastline. Aleutians, dry. Dry with maybe some areas of fog, and that's about it. Bering Sea not looking too shabby, actually. Weak trough there, some drizzle and fog may move into the Pribilofs tomorrow. We'll see. Actually does, kind of cranks up a little bit there, but not too bad. Small craft advisories for the Pribilof Islands with that low, and periods of rain and fog and low flying conditions, but maybe some sunshine. AKwx, west of Shimianat 2, there for the western Aleutians, and improving also for the southwest Bering Sea. But the eastern Bering Sea, right into the interior, tomorrow looks cloudy and wet and cool, all the way up to the Arctic coast, and that moisture spreading along the eastern North Gulf Coast and trying to make landfall along the north coast of the Panhandle, kind of having trouble pushing too far east or southeast. Stays partly mostly sunny over the southern Panhandle toward Dixon Entrance. And even the, let's see, St. Lawrence Island, periods of light rain and fog into the Bering Strait and along the northwest coast. And then for the day on Wednesday, interior stays cloudy, cool, and occasionally wet, especially in the west there. Periods of rain and showers with that trough from the Noatak Valley down toward Bethel, and a low pressure area over the Alaska Peninsula for periods of rain and showers there. Chance of showers, Kodiak Island, really not too bad, just generally cloudy. And the Panhandle, not much change. Variable clouds, sunniest in the south, cloudiest in the north, so warmest in the south, coolest north there. And isolated showers possible, eastern Alaska Range on up to maybe around Eagle, eastern Brooks Range again, and pretty cloudy, showery, and cooler over the central and west or central interior there. And less showers, though, for south central Alaska, maybe a few sun breaks showing up in the afternoon hours. Otherwise, again, Kodiak Island, just risk of some shower activity and generally cloudy skies. Improving along the southwest coast. See, St. Lawrence Island may have a dry day there, unless that system's a little faster and nudges that moisture in during the afternoon hours, but it looks like it'll stay to the west. And the Pribilof, same thing, maybe some clearing, weak ridging there ahead of that very weak trough just to your west. That'll probably sweep a few showers in during the evening on Wednesday. Otherwise, the Aleutians, dry, and wind's not a problem at all. About the only island out there seeing a chance of showers would be on Alaska Island. A little bit better chance there along the Alaska Peninsula, but winds will be light. Better chance, closer proximity to that 1010 millibar low. Anyway, moving on to temperatures for the forecast lows tonight. Mid to upper 50s there, upper Tanana Valley into the Yukon Flats. 40s, mid to upper out west to lower 40s for the St. Lawrence Island area, lower to mid 40s for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, upper 40s Alaska Peninsula, mid 40s Bristol Bay, lower 50s South Central Alaska, and the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow looks like pushing towards 70, lower 70s possible again over the southern southeast coast, a little cooler up to the north. 55 forecast high for Yakutat. That's actually good for all of the North Gulf Coast and the Prince William Sound. Mid 60s Copper River Basin, possibly 70 there along the eastern border from Tok Northway up toward Eagle. 74 your forecast high. Definitely cooler for the all of the eastern interior, cooler than what you saw today. 50s mid to upper for the areas west of the Alaska Range to 50 to 55 out toward the coast, actually near 50. Lower 50s for the Pribilofs, and upper 40s, lower 50s for the Aleutians. Lower to mid 50s Alaska Peninsula, upper 50s Kodiak. And the lows Wednesday morning, 40s to near 50. Much of interior Alaska, upper 30s central Arctic coast. Panhandle lower to mid 50s. Lower to mid 40s for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, as well as St. Lawrence Island. Highs on Wednesday, pretty cool for this time of year. 50s to mid 60s, maybe 70 in the Yukon Flats. And a little bit cooler, having trouble pushing 70 now over the southern Panhandle, with lower 50s, lower to mid 50s for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic, we've got VFR, Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, IFR on the central and part of the west side, the IFR through the Bering Strait, southern Seward Peninsula, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, right up into the lower Yukon River Valley area to the Kuskokwim Mountains, and then back out to the west-southwest, St. Lawrence Island, the Pribilofs, and the western and central Aleutians. Marginal VFR, Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, some VFR for Kodiak Island, IFR, eastern and southern slopes of the central and western Alaska Range, also the east side of the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, and IFR right along the coast of the Panhandle, improving the VFR as you head east toward the border, and VFR north of the Alaska Range, up across the Yukon Flats, White Mountains, most of the North Slope, and eastern Brooks Range. For the afternoon, chance of thunderstorms, isolated to widely scattered Wrangell Mountains, eastern Alaska Range, and possibly the eastern Brooks Range, with the IFR out west along the coast, inland actually to the Kuskokwim Mountains, and Nulato Hills, Norton Bay, Seward Peninsula IFR right along the Arctic coast with VFR central north slope, and then big chunk of IFR out over the Bering Sea, including the Pribilofs, Adak, and Atka, marginal VFR for the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, some VFR lingering around Kodiak, Fognak Island into southern Cook Inlet and Kenai Peninsula, but North Gulf Coast, IFR, Prince William Sound, IFR, and IFR right along the southeast coast. And then for the day Wednesday, VFR North Slope and part of the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, IFR from, say, Wainwright to Point Lay, marginal VFR from Prudhoe Bay eastward to demarcation point Barter Island, and areas of VFR on the east side there with some scattered IFR and also some areas of marginal VFR. And then a band of IFR from the southern slopes of the DeLong Mountains, Brooks Range, across the Kobuk Valley, Norton Sound, southwest interior, again along and west of the Kuskokwim Mountains down into Dillingham, Togiak Bay, eastern Aleutians to Adak and the Alaska Peninsula. But VFR, Kodiak Island, except for the southwest part of the island there, but VFR right up into Cook Inlet and the Susitna Valley, and marginal VFR for the Prince William Sound area, but still IFR there, Yakutat and down along the southeast coast. And then for the afternoon, marginal VFR for the Panhandle, IFR holding firm there over the Yakutat area, marginal for Prince William Sound, and passes Canal into Portage. Scattered marginal VFR in the eastern interior, and more widespread though in the west. Marginal VFR for the Arctic coast, IFR, central Bering Sea, eastern Bering right along the coast into Bristol Bay, southwest Kodiak Island, and the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, marginal VFR. Passes Anatuvik marginal tomorrow as mostly marginal VFR, and Adigan, call it marginal VFR, risk of some IFR though, especially for Anatuvik, but right now marginal seems to cover it pretty well. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR trending toward marginal VFR as a band of moisture pushes through, and for rainy, mostly IFR at times throughout the day, and windy. IFR most likely on the southern entrance if it occurs at all, otherwise marginal VFR and possible VFR in the northern entrance, with Isabel occasionally marginal and mostly marginal from Antasta, risk of a thunderstorm, and for Tanita, marginal VFR, maybe some improvement in the afternoon, and for Portage though, IFR, either approach, and Chilcoot and White starting out VFR and then pretty rapidly becoming marginal during the morning hours through the afternoon. And looking at the freezing levels, cold upper low out over the eastern Bering, 4,000 foot pocket there just northwest of the Pribilofs, 6,000 feet into the southwest interior, but 12,000 feet still ridging up over the Panhandle, and icing areas of mixed considerable moderate into southern Alaska there in the shaded areas, otherwise light to isolated moderate, good portion of the southwest interior and the north slope and over the Pribilofs. Jet stream, there's that upper level low, kind of two centers here at 33,000 feet, but good westerly flow across the Alaska Peninsula, turns southwest Kodiak Island, right up into the eastern North Gulf Coast, eastern interior, and at 9,000 feet, 35 knots southwesterly through the central interior, but 40 to 50 knots there over the southern Bering Sea, 3,000 feet, 35 to 50 knot winds southern Bering Sea, and up to 45 knots there up around Norton Bay with that low. Turbulence, moderate chop of Norton Bay, Pribilofs, Fox Islands, Adak, and Atka. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Hello again, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with the National Weather Service for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. And joining us again, talking about the Augmented Reality Sandbox, is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. And he's actually talking about a project from AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. A lot of acronyms, but some really fun stuff today, right, Eric?
You bet. We've got a learning tool that is a tool that's fun to use, and it really has a relevance to actually daily lives of anyone who goes outside and sees lumpy topography in Alaska. We've got a lot of mountains and such. You know, when I was younger and go on your first hike in the hills, say, you're given, maybe you're in the Boy Scouts or you get at the kiosk at the trailhead, a topographic map, a flat piece of paper with all these lines on it, bullseyes, long lines that curve back on themselves, say, perhaps things that look like this. A quadrangle or a topographic map. We've got here just to illustrate a couple of examples near Denali. Alaska has so much topography, so many mountains. And what are all these lines that we see? It can be tough to know what this means the first time you look at it. What we've got, all these lines represent lines of where the elevation of the topography goes through a certain level above sea level. Say that this line represents where the mountains have gone from below 1,000 feet, mean sea level, up through 1,000 feet and above. That's your 1,000-foot contour. And when the mountain keeps going up, you're up to 1,200 feet, 1,400 feet, and so on. And that's how you get this little bullseye around the peak of a mountain.
Kind of makes layered slices, right?
Kind of like layered slices. Nice way to look at that. And when you see the lines are closer together, you're going up more steeply. If the mountain rises more slowly, it takes you longer in horizontal space to go through those different vertical increments. So
that is really hard to visualize.
Right. Imagine you're looking at a 2D piece of paper, two-dimensional piece of paper, but you're trying to understand what the three-dimensional world looks like. Well, enter the augmented reality sandbox. Yes, what is that? It is right here. We have the sandbox with us today, Sandbox 2.0, portable version.
Sweet.
Built up at University of Alaska Fairbanks. And we've got a couple of folks helping out today.
Let's see, Alana Valaji, and she's a mechanical engineering student from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. If you want to give us a thumbs up there, Alana, thanks for helping us out today. And Courtney Brees, she's the outreach coordinator from AKwx, also helping us out today. Thanks, Courtney.
And this tool here has a Microsoft Kinect to sense the level of sand in this sandbox. And then the Kinect feeds its information into a computer that then sends a signal to a projector to draw the appropriate topographic lines on this topography. The fun thing about this, as we can see here, is that the sandbox and its Kinect and its projector, they all work as a team. So here we've got a mountain in the middle of the sandbox. What if we took down the mountain to some degree? Watch as the software responds and redraws the topography.
Kind of a caldera forming there.
There you go, And what's fun about the sandbox too is it knows that gravity flows downhill, and we've got some water that's actually down in the lowest elevations. And what's happening now is we're making it rain a little bit. We'll fill up rain into that elevated lake bed, that caldera, as you said. And so now water is pooled up there. And what if you gouged out an outlet channel?
Glacial dam release.
There you go. The water flows out. What we're seeing here is a tool that allows people to touch and connect, Microsoft Connect, RRR, to connect two-dimensional topographic maps like what we have here, these flat things on a piece of paper, to the real three-dimensional world. I think this Sandbox's real particular application as a learning tool to young people is, what does a two-dimensional map mean when it's trying to represent the three-dimensional world? This sandbox is kind of both at once. It's actually three-dimensional, lumpy topography there, the sand, but it's got these lines drawn on the three-dimensional sand that would be on a two-dimensional piece of paper.
Wow, that is a huge leap from the learning that we experienced when we were younger to how children and even adults are visualizing in these new forms of technology. Allows that to kind of reshape their thinking and visualize this in a very useful and absolutely hands-on way. It's amazing.
It's a hands-on tool, and
it's hard for me to sit here and not go play with that.
Well, that's what happened at GINA, up at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, when the first model was being made, the prototype with plywood and such. We had professional adult professor types had heard about this, and they
Yeah.
came by because they wanted to see how it worked.
Okay.
And everyone becomes that idealistic, wonder-filled youngster.
Sure.
And you just can't help but play with that, and to see how it reacts in time, and
Right.
it's a dynamic learning tool, and it
Dynamic.
responds.
That's exactly the word.
And
Yeah.
you wonder what applicabilities beyond a teaching
Right.
tool for
Where does it
topography
go?
can it have. You can see how in Alaska we have inundation mapping is an issue. If you had water slosh inland, say in a coastal flooding event
Right.
on the western coast of Alaska or the Arctic coast, you could see this. The concept is illustrated here as an introductory learning method. I think this is a potentially good outreach tool for all of us in Alaska.
Okay, so not only just a topographical sense, a mapping sense, maybe something that leads into understanding of how geographic information systems work with GIS, but also geology, if we wanted to get into kind of the formations and the bigger land masses and the representation of the 2D map. We could go into hydrology, which is very important in Alaska, of course. And even just understanding the weather sense. Mounding up a big pile of sand could be that Arctic high pressure system sitting on top of Fairbanks, and the voids would be low pressure systems. This can go a lot of different directions.
Yes, exactly. It's not just landforms, but pressure has contours of high pressure and low pressure. And I wish I had had this kind of a learning tool when I was taking
kidding.
Meteorology 101 back 25 years ago.
wow.
Would have been helpful, I think.
Probably would have gotten a better grade, yeah. Okay, thank you so much for coming by, Eric, and Alana and Courtney, thank you so much for your help there in the sandbox. We are going to play in the sandbox a little bit more coming up tomorrow on our next edition of Alaska Weather Facts. We hope you join us for that. In the meantime, make sure you go to alaska.edu/EPSCOR. That's alaska.edu EPSCOR to learn more information about what we're doing with this augmented reality sandbox around Alaska. We'll see you next time on Alaska Weather Facts. And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the coastal water forecast for the south coast of the Panhandle. Northwest winds at 20 knots. And south to southwest winds 10 knots on the north coast. Lynn Canal south at 20. And the central southern inside waters, winds on the light side, north to northwest up to 15 knots. Seas running about 3 feet. And for the day on Wednesday, we've got light winds on the north coast from the west and southwest, only at 10 knots, 5-foot seas. South coast, not much different. Westerlies at 15 knots with 5-foot seas. And Stevens Passage, south winds 10 knots, a little brisker up there in Lynn Canal from the south at 20. In the afternoon, seas 4 feet. Clarence Strait, looking at northwest winds at 15 knots with 3-foot seas. And for Tuesday, Prince William Sound southeast at 15 knots, light seas, and the North Gulf Coast, Middleton Island area south at 15, and for the western North Gulf Coast, Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, southwest at 15, seas 4 feet or 3 to 4 feet. Swollen craft advisories, though, for Cook Inlet, south winds sustained 25 knots, seas as high as 7 feet. And then for Wednesday, south 10 to 15 knot winds for Cook Inlet, southwest 20 for the Barren Islands. Southwest 15 for the Barren Islands, 20 knot winds for the for the Kamishak Bay zone, western North Gulf Coast, seas at about 5 feet, and Prince William Sound, east winds at 10 knots with 2-foot seas. Kodiak Island, southwest winds 20 to 25 knots, and 20 to 25 knot southwest winds also for the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay. Moving on to the outlook for Wednesday. Lighter winds for Kodiak, southwest of 15, 4 to 6-foot seas, and west winds 20 to 25 knots with the small craft advisories on the Pacific side. The Alaska Peninsula, where seas will be 8 feet, and lighter winds for Bristol Bay out of the southwest at 15 knots with 5-foot seas. Aleutians, Fox Islands, Adak and Atka, Shemya, Kiska, Amchitka, all southwest, 20 to 30 knots, seas 7 to 8 feet. And the outlook for Wednesday, pretty uniform as well. Westerly strong as Fox Islands, 25 to 30 knots. Otherwise, west-southwest 25, Adak and Atka. 25 knot winds from Amchitka to Shemya. And for the southwest coast on Tuesday, southwest breeze 15 to 20 knots, seas 5 to 7 feet. Small craft advisories with that system, that small low approaching the Pribilofs, 25 knots out of the southwest with 7-foot seas. West winds 15, northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island, but about 20 knots from the west for Norton Sound. And then on Wednesday, southwest 20 for Norton Sound, west 20 for St. Lawrence Island, southwest 15 St. Matthew Island, Yukon Delta coast, and the Pribilof sees 5 to 7 feet, northwest at 15 for the Kuskokwim Delta coast. And moving on up to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, we've got brisk wind advisories or small craft advisories with the 4-foot seas there in the ice-free areas of the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, but winds east sustained 25 knots, lighter on the central coast east at 20, lighter yet and northeast on the west side, and north winds 15 knots from Cape Thompson to Wales with seas running at about 3 feet. And then the outlook for Wednesday, reverse it one direction, bring them down, southwest 15 knots there for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, also 15 knots from the southwest for the central coast, and light southwest breeze for the western Arctic coast all the way down to Cape Thompson to Wales, westerly 15 knots with 3-foot seas. And tonight, the forecast, periods of rain move into south central Alaska and Prince William Sound, heaviest there, southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula into western Prince William Sound, and over to about Cape Yakataga, but they're eastward lighter to cutting off about Yakutat. Kind of cloudy there, areas of the Panhandle, especially along the coast. Eastern interior gradually increasing clouds and shower chances, but wet out west and breezy. And then the outlook for Tuesday, tomorrow, cool and wet. Interior Alaska, even wetter over the eastern interior as well. Risk of an isolated thunderstorm over the eastern Alaska Range, maybe the Brooks Range again. And chance of rain along the north coast of the Panhandle, really not going to make it too much farther than that. Stays partly sunny down south. And the small craft advisories with 1,009 millibar low. Periods of rain, fog, IFR for the Pribilof Islands. Stays wet along the southwest coast. Lighter rainfall amounts, though, for Bristol Bay. And for Wednesday, showers, again, cloudy, cool over the interior, drier for the north slope, and stays dry over the Panhandle. Risk of a shower over toward Gustavus and Elfin Cove to Yakutat.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.